Good morning, everybody. I hope you're doing well today. We're going to be working on our 5D and 5E notes, dividing decimals by integers as well as dividing decimals by decimals. Our learning targets are I can divide decimals and integers by decimals, and I can divide decimals by integers. So we are going to be looking at some problems dividing decimals. I know it sounds frustrating, but really dividing decimals is going to be very similar to just dividing regular numbers. So if we look at this first problem, we got 36.75 divided by 7. The first number is what goes inside of our fraction of our division symbol here. So if you look over here, we had 8 divided by 2 equals 4. 8 would be the dividend, so 36.75 is the dividend. The dividend goes inside, that's what we're dividing into. The 2 is the divisor, it's what you're dividing by. Just like here, 7 is the divisor, it's what we're dividing by. So we can go ahead and set this up. The first number goes on the inside, and the second number goes on the outside. Now, one key thing to know is we are going to bring our decimal straight up at the beginning of the problem. So we have the decimal right here. We're just going to bring it straight on up and put it right here. That way we don't forget about it when we're after we finish. So now we got we have 7. Well, 7 can't go into 3, but it can go into 36. And 7 goes into 36 5 times. And 7 times 5 gives you 35, of which we can subtract and get 1 remaining. And now we bring down our 7. 7 goes into 17 2 times, so we'll put our 2 after the decimal now. And that would be a 14 if you do 7 times 2. Subtract that, we get 3 remaining. And bring down our 5, and 7 goes into 35 5 times, which is a grand total of 35. So we subtract and get 0, and we're done. Our answer is 5.25. So again, dividing decimals is very similar to dividing just regular numbers. The only really difference here is we got to bring the decimal point straight up. So let's go ahead and try that again. The first number is what goes on the inside. So we have a 48.24 here on the inside. And we're dividing into a -4. A really large negative sign. -4, there we go. Now we know that this is a positive divided by a negative. So I'm actually just going to bring my negative straight up here into the final answer, because I know that if they have different signs, it's negative. And so 4 goes into 4 1 time. And actually, don't forget to bring your decimal point straight up at the start of the problem, like I just did. 4 times 1 is 4, which gives us 0. Bring down an 8. 4 goes into 8 2 times. So 4 times 2 is 8, which gets you another 0. And now we bring down a 2, and here's where things get interesting. 4 cannot go into 2. So we have to put a 0 right here and then bring down the 4 as well. A lot of people, when they do this, they forget to put the 0 and they just bring the 4 down and then they keep going. Make sure that you put a 0 right here, since the 4 cannot just go into 2. And now 4 goes into 24 6 times. And 4 times 6 is 24, which gets us 0. So the final answer is -12.06. There we are. Alrighty, members of a reading group order books for $128.64 and bookmarks for $26. If there are 8 people in the group, how much does each person owe on average? So first of all, they bought a bunch of bookmarks and a bunch of books for this. So we need to find the total amount of money they spent first before we can do anything else. So that's 128.64 plus 26. We got a decimal, a couple zeros here. We know that this is just going to be 64. 8 plus 6 is 14. And then that would be 5 and a 1. So they spent a total of $154.64. But now it says, if there are 8 people, how much does each person owe? Well, that means we are splitting our total here between 8 different people. And so if you guys ever have a word problem where you're splitting something between people, that is going to be division. And so we are going to divide our 154.64. We're dividing that by 8. Now 8 goes into 1 0 times, it can't, but 8 can go into 15, and that would be just once, which would be an 8 here. And we can subtract and get our 7, bring down our 4. Make sure you bring the decimal point straight on up. 8 goes into 74 9 times, which is 72. We subtract that, we get 2 left over. Bring down our 6, a little too far. 8 can go into 6 3 times. And 8 times 3 would be 24, which gives you 2 left over. Bring down the last 4, and 8 can go into 24 again 3 times. Get your 24, get your 0 left over, and that means each person is going to go, $19.33. Let's put our label here at the front. There we have it, 19.33. So that is how you divide a decimal by an integer, just by a normal number. Now we're going to look at a few problems where we are dividing by a decimal, dividing decimals by decimals. So we are never going to actually divide by a decimal. So like if you look at this first problem, it'd be 6.54 divided by negative 1.2. We're not going to divide by a decimal. We are going to get rid of the decimal instead and make it into an integer. So to get rid of the decimal, we can move the decimal. I'm going to type that out here. To get rid of it, we're just going to move it. And we're going to move it by multiplying by powers of 10. That's what I actually want here. To get rid of the decimal, we can multiply by powers of 10. What that means is we're going to multiply by things like 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. Those would all be considered powers of 10. So an easy way to multiply by a power of 10, you just move the decimal. So if we think about it, if I give you guys the problem, let's say 2 times 10. Well, 10 is a power of 2, and we know 2 times 10 is just 20. Well, if you also think about it, if we multiply by a power of 10, this one has just 1 0. All we do is move the decimal 1 time over and put a 0 in that spot. And we can see that's exactly what happened when we multiplied by 20, or by 2 by 10 here. We got 20. If I had 3.5 times 100, well, 3.5 times 100 I know is going to be 350, because we know 3 times 100 is 300, so 3.5 times 100 is 350. Or, we have 2 zeros here, we move the decimal once, twice, and put a 0 here. So multiplying by a power of 10 really just shifts the decimal over. So 3.4 times 10, well, that's just 43. Sorry, 4.3 times 10 is just 43. Move the decimal 1 time because there's 1 0 here. 8.71 times 100, well, there's 2 zeros, so that means we move the decimal 2 times, which is 871. So the reason why that matters is that we are not going to divide by decimal. We're going to multiply by a power of 10 to shift the decimal over, and then we can multiply by divide by an integer, which is going to make our lives a lot easier. So on this first problem, we need to shift the decimal over 1 time to make this into a normal integer. So we can divide by negative 12 instead. But if we move this decimal over once, which means we multiplied by 10, we have to do the same thing to this number here. We have to multiply by 10 on this number as well, which is going to shift the decimal over 1 spot. So this is really 65.4 divided by negative 12. And again, we can go ahead and put our 65.4 inside of our fraction bar, put our negative 12 on the outside. And really quick, we can see these have different signs, which means this is going to be a negative answer. So I'm just going to put a negative up here for the final answer. and I'm going to bring the decimal straight up. That was weird. There we go. So 12 cannot go into 6, but it can go into 65 5 times. 12 times 5 is 60. If we minus, we get a 5 here. Bring down the 4. And 12 can go into 54. I believe that is 4 times, which gets you 48. And if we subtract this, we will borrow, make this a 14, and that will give us a 6. And we can add, since we have something left down here, we can't just stop. So we're going to add in a 0 and bring the 0 down. And now 12 can go into 60 5 times. 12 times 5 is 60. So that gets us 0. So our answer is negative 5.45. Go ahead and pause the video and try to do this next problem on your own. Alrighty, so you should have moved this decimal over one time, which gets us negative 8. But if you move this decimal once, we have to move this decimal once as well. And this is going to be negative 96.4. Again, it doesn't matter about this number here. We're not trying to get rid of that decimal. We want to get rid of the decimal of the number we're dividing by. So when we go ahead and write this out, the 8 goes on the outside. We're dividing by 8. This is the one here that we want to make sure we don't have a decimal. The number on the inside, this can have a decimal. It doesn't matter. We've already seen in these previous problems up here that we can divide into a decimal. We just don't want to divide by a decimal because it makes our lives harder. And this is a negative divided by negative. These have the same sign, so we'll know we'll get a positive answer. So I don't need to put anything up here. 8 goes into 9 one time. And let's bring that decimal up as well. So we get an 8 here, and we can subtract, which gets us 0. Bring down the 6. 8 can go into 6 0 times. So we need to put a 0 here. And then bring down the 4 as well. And 8 can go into 64 8 times. And 8 times 8 is 64, which gets us 0. So final answer, 10.8. So when you're dividing by a decimal, just make sure you shift that decimal over until it's at the very end. And however many times you shift the decimal for this number, you have to also shift the decimal for this number here. One last problem. A company charges $0.15 or 15 cents for each mile driven. The company charged Eric $18.75. How many miles did Eric drive? So we have a total of $18.75, and we know it's 15 cents every mile. So we need to divide by this 0.15 to figure out how many miles total he drove. So 18.75 divided by 0.15. But again, we never want to divide by decimal, so we're going to go ahead and shift this decimal back 2 times. That way it's simply just dividing by 15 now. If we shift this decimal twice, though, this decimal has to also be shifted twice, which is 1875 now. And now we can go ahead and line it up, put our 1875 on the inside, put our 15 on the outside. 15 cannot go into 1, but it can go into 18 once, which is 15. Subtract that, we get a 3, bring down our 7. 15 goes into 37 twice, which gets us 30 if you do 15 times 2, which gives you 7, bring down the 5, and 15 goes into 75. I believe it is 5 times. It is, in fact, 5 times. Subtract that, we are left over with 0, which means the final answer is 125 miles. Really quick, if you were working out this problem, and let's say we don't end with a 0 here, and we needed to bring stuff down to keep going, the decimal is technically right here at the end. We can't see it in the problem. We shifted it to the back behind the 5, so we know the decimal is right here. So you would need to, if we needed to continue dividing, you would just put that there, bring it up, add some zeros, and that's how you would do that really quick. That is going to be it for our notes today. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I hope you guys have a great day.